pretty unbelievable to me that you're going to come out with an Escalade, an EV Escalade this year. I wouldn't have expected that. And that brings the total number of electric vehicles Cadillac is going to introduce to 3 in 2023. You're all in.
Yeah, we're absolutely all in terms of EVs as an example. You know that Escalade has been sort of dominant and iconic in the large SUV segment for over 20 years now. And if you looked at the current Escalade in terms of the ICE configuration, it's sort of segment leader. And if you then complement it with a ground up all new Escalade IQ, it's absolutely fantastic news. It's super exciting to be able to sell those two products. And, I think if you combine that with the Celestiq offering that we've put out there as well, it absolutely shows our commitment to being all in terms of EVs with a fantastic portfolio.
So what do you do for the powertrain? Is this the same powertrain from the Hummer? Are you going to be using your platform across all of your large SUV EVs?
Yeah, so I think you may have heard before, but we have our Ultium platform, and the Ultium platform actually gives us the ability to be able to configure battery packs in many different formats in terms of the amount of modules that are in there. So dependent upon the capabilities of the vehicle, dependent upon the prices of the vehicle, dependent upon what functionality we want from the vehicle, then we configure those Ultium battery packs in a way that fits the customer needs. So there's a huge degree of commonality within Ultium, but it also provides us with ultimate flexibility.
Is Ultium able to scale from, a $30,000 vehicle all the way up to a $150,000 vehicle?
It certainly is. That's one of the great things about Ultium as a product.
That's very impressive. Now, having said that, more people who are ordering your vehicles are paying closer to the upper end. I saw that of the Silverado HD orders, which is a work truck, let's be fair, right? 84% are for AT4 and Denali trims. In fact, more than 50% are for Denali and Denali Ultimate trims. So they're paying top dollar for these trucks.
Yeah, no, I mean, and I think that's, again, it's just credibility in terms of the desirability of the product portfolio. If you looked at the General Motors product portfolio today, I think it's outstanding. And if you looked at it in terms of what customers are looking at to buy to meet their needs, as an example, they're paying a premium. So again, it just shows the desirability of our vehicles and the fact that we've got vehicles that are attractive to our customers.
Congratulations, by the way, on your promotion. In July, I guess you're going to be taking over as the president for North America. I saw that Buick is the fastest growing mainstream brand. How does Buick fit into your product mix?
Yeah, I mean, we have the four core brands in terms of Buick, GMC, Chevrolet, and Canada as an example. And, I'd have to say it's really exciting times in terms of the positive momentum that we've got across the brands. If you looked at the brand that I've headed up to date as an example, last year it was the fastest growing full line luxury brand here in the US. If you looked at GMC as an example, it's got record sales and record share in Q1 of this year. If you looked at Buick in terms of a mainstream brand, it's the fastest growing brand in the US in Q1. Its sales performance was actually up 111%. And then if you looked at Chevrolet in terms of a brand that is represented in so many segments, again, overall, fastest growing full line mainstream brand in the US in Q1. So I just say that we've got momentum across all of the brands at the moment with terrific product portfolios.
In terms of the large SUVs, Rory, General Motors has always dominated, or at least as long as I can remember. Nobody else even comes into the space, really, where the 6.2-liter Tahoes and Yukons drive, and the Escalade, of course. But what about, more affordable products? It seems that everyone has abandoned cars that sell for below $40,000 or below $30,000 in this country. Are you paying attention to that market?
Yeah, we certainly are. I mean, if you looked at it as an example, you're absolutely right. If you looked at the latest data in the industry, I think the average transaction price now is up to $48,000. So that's a significant increase from where it was just as recently as 2019. We certainly are not abandoning that segment of the marketplace. Indeed, if you looked at 2019, 40% of cars that were sold were actually under 30K. And today it's 20% of vehicles. But if you looked at our vehicle portfolio going forward across the brands, then we have new competitive entrants that are coming in that will really drive our performance going forward. So just as an example, just as a data point, Chevrolet, Buick and GMC, we estimate that there will be more than 1 million vehicles sold starting below $30,000 in terms of MSRP and that's for 23 and 24 models. And that'll be led by many of the new small SUVs.
You have a small electric vehicle in the Bolt that addresses that issue. How are your EV sales as a percentage of the total? What do you expect, for example, Rory, in 2023 and 2024?
Yeah, that one's really interesting because, as you know, Matt, the adoption rates continue to change. If you looked at the data for April, I think it was the highest penetration of EVs in the industry, as an example. So we adjust, our production capabilities in line with consumer demand. So I guess I'm not going to give a definitive number, but suffice to say that it's increasing all of the time. And if you looked at the second half of the year, certainly if you take the Cadillac Lyriq as an example, we know that we started off deliberately so with relatively low volumes, and we're building significantly in half two. So it's going to take an ever greater proportion of General Motors sales.
Rory, let me finally ask you about the chip situation. Are you all caught up in terms of the supply chain? Can you get all the chips that you need to produce in the size that you want to?
I would say work in progress. I would say it's significantly better than where it was historically. I would say that we are not in a position that we can declare that it's all totally behind us, but I would say that it's much more stable, and I would say that it's going to continue to improve going forward. So a much better position overall.